Most model railroaders talk about HO, and O gauge trains. Even outdoor model railroaders don't get much bigger than locomotives that you can sit on and ride. But what about the largest scale? Today, I'm going to talk about what you need to build a one-to-one model railroad. One-to-one scale matches perfectly to the real-life railroads and even uses the same locomotives, rolling stock as the real railroads, and even the same track. There are narrow gauge variants of one-to-one scale, the most common being 3-foot gauge. So, what do you need to run a one-to-one model railroad? Well, first of all, you're definitely going to be running this outside. This is because most engines in this scale cannot fit in your typical train room. Also, the locomotives are incredibly realistic and their engines do put out a significant amount of fumes and exhaust because most are either diesel or steam powered, just like the real thing. If you want to opt for an electric locomotive, you have to consider installing overhead lines for your railroad. That's just one thing you got to think about. Speaking of railroad, where would you build your one-to-one scale railroad? The ideal spot would be a large plot of land. A point-to-point railroad is going to be less expensive than a loop because of the land purchases. Now, the track can get pricey when you're installing it. You're looking at about $1 to $3 million per mile. But you may be able to eliminate some costs by building it on your own land and maybe get it down to $500,000 per mile, which is a pretty good deal. You will likely want to consult a professional installer to install your track. Your track's going to be hand laid, so if you're not comfortable with hand laid track, you may want to consider a smaller scale, and it can be quite a headache if your train derails and you want to keep that from happening, which is another reason to consult that professional. Now, if you don't want to lay all your own track, there's plenty of track that's just out there. You just have to acquire the land that the track is on. So another idea would be to acquire an old industrial area with rail service. These can be found for a few $1,000,000 in some remote areas and may have things like sidings and turnouts already installed, so that's a pretty good deal. Okay, so we talked about building your layout. Let's talk about locomotives and rolling stock. Now, most of what you're finding out there is going to be diesel electric, and you can certainly convert these to DCC, but a lot of times they'll run just fine and you'll be able to access all the features without a decoder. So DCC really isn't necessary for these locomotives. A new locomotive is probably going to run you north of $1 million, probably a couple million, so the used market in one-to-one scale is a great way to go. Depending on what you want to model, you can get a locomotive like this 35-ton switcher or this 65-ton GE center cab for under $50,000, or even this 25-ton switcher for under $35,000. Now, that's a pretty good deal. I may have to whip out my credit card. The bigger you go, the more expensive it gets, but you can still get some good locomotives like this GP9 for under $100,000. And if you're looking for mainline power, you're definitely going to go over $100,000, like this SD40-2 for $334,000. Now, when it comes to rolling stock, you're looking at least $10,000 per car and more for passenger cars and cabooses. Now, I know these prices sound high, but I promise you, you will never find a more detailed and accurate model because it's the same ones the real railroads use. And most of these are left outside, so the weathering is extremely accurate. If you're a rivet counter with a few million to spend, definitely look into one-to-one scale model railroading. Now, let's talk scenery. You're going to be shelling out a lot for scenery, but you can save a ton of money by picking a piece of land that already has a nice backdrop like rolling hills or a mountainside or some woods with some old buildings. If you don't have that, you'll need to head down to your local home and garden center or home improvement store and pick up a lot of trees. They do come pre-made, but you will have to plant them. So you can also buy grass. It comes up in two varieties, rolls of sod or seeds. Seeds will be more cost effective as they come in multiple varieties, and you just get what grows in your area when you're looking for what you're buying. One-to-one scale model railroading, it can be a ton of fun because you can actually climb inside the locomotives and run the trains. Now, I don't think I'll be doing it anytime soon because it's a bit cost prohibitive for me. Now, in case you haven't figured it out yet, this video came out on April Fool's. So I'm not too serious here. But I want to hear some funny comments from you guys about one-to-one scale model railroading if it was a real thing. You can talk about grab irons, handrails, laying track, whatever. Let's make the comment section fun. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading, no matter what size it is.